Hey guys, I just finished Fargo. I liked it. I did. I liked it a lot. I had seen it several times, like partially, but like I never saw like more than 25 minutes of it, like on television, basically. So this was the first time I sat all the way through it, and I liked it a lot. Before we get started, here's a picture of Minnesota with Fargo, which is actually in North Dakota, not in Minnesota. So it's weird that the whole film is like, took place in Minnesota, and most of the film did take place in Minnesota, but they decided to call it Fargo, even though Fargo isn't in Minnesota. So you got Fargo over there in the north of North Dakota, and then Brainerd, and then Minneapolis. And I grew up. The majority of my life has been spent about 10 minutes out of Minneapolis. So this story is definitely, or like this movie is definitely like specifically making fun of the area where I've grown up and lived my entire life. And you may notice that neither me nor Neil have the Minnesota accent, don't you know? Yeah, because up north there, we don't all talk like that. Even in the cities down there, most people don't talk like this at all. I mean, I've grown up with like knowing maybe two people who talked like that, and I don't know. It's a more northern Minnesota thing, I think, or maybe a more rural thing. There are some people who do, but not me. My family isn't from Minnesota originally, so maybe that's why. Anyway, so there's that aspect of it. Then there's the whole like Minnesotans, and there's the Minnesota nice that Neil brought up, but also there's just the overall wholesomeness. Like, and that's really what I think the movie like nobody could believe that anyone was like breaking the rules, and that's so true about Minnesota. Like, in fact, I laughed so often in this movie about stuff like the really stupid girls who were like, I graduated from what was it, Normandale? No, I went to Normandale, didn't graduate, dropped out, um, and then they're just like, yeah. And the little guy, he was kind of weird looking, or strange looking, or funny looking. It was funny looking. He was kind of funny looking. He was smaller, and he wasn't circumcised. And then they just were so dumb and out of it. And like, she was trying to be polite about it and being like, oh, oh, you betcha, that's real helpful. She was really trying to not be like to them, and that's so what people in Minnesota would try to do. Um, like, I don't know. There's an innocence about the Minnesota people. I feel that like things need to be good, and like the swearing in the house, that totally happens. I I learned how to swear from my parents. And there's like swearing. I don't remember how old it was that they just stopped caring. They initially did care. They were like, no, you shouldn't swear. And then I like every swear word I've learned from my parents. So and most of them have been directed at me when I learned them. So they can't really blame me for that. But certainly when I went to friends' households, I had to watch my mouth, which was frequently difficult, especially when playing video games like Halo. I would scream at the top, "You motherfucker! Oh, you jackass!" And everyone would know me. That the parents would all have their eyes on me and just be like, "That kid, no, that kid's a bad influence. You stay away from him, son." But one thing I did notice is that in the credits, "Victim in Field" is accredited to the symbol of Prince. Like, remember when Prince in the 90s decided that he didn't want his name spelled out like a normal human being? He wanted a symbol? The Prince symbol is in the credits. And when I went to IMDb, it was accredited to some other guy who has helped the Coen brothers on several other projects. So I'm guessing that was a joke, because it wasn't Prince. It didn't look anything like Prince. The Victim in the Field was like this. It was this heavier set guy. It's kind of big, which is definitely not Prince. So yeah, I don't know. Prince is a Minnesota thing too, because he's got his recording studio in Minneapolis, I think, and so we take credit for him, which I don't think we should do. To be perfectly frank, he's kind of a creepy guy. He looks like an elf or some sort of fairy, and not as in implying that he's gay, which he may be, but I'm not implying that. But he just looks Like, just look at him. He doesn't look human. He looks like he belongs in a fantasy novel. Yeah, but I mean, overall, I liked the story of the movie. Um, liked the characters. Acting was brilliant. Maybe I'm not the best judge for this movie because, I mean, so much of it, so many of the landmarks and everything that they mention, I know about. I know about White Bear Lake. Like, I know about, so many of those things. And, like, the the kinds of people that this film depict do exist. I mean, that's not what Minnesota is entirely comprised of at all. God no. Like, uh, I'd say that's less than 10% of Minnesota is people like that. But those people totally exist, and it's so interesting that they decided to make a movie about that. To me, um, I don't know. I guess that's my perspective on it. I made the mistake of watching both of your reviews prior to watching the movie. And it's actually 2:17 a.m., so I just got done with the movie, and it's Saturday now. Oh, what do I want to talk about aside from, I don't know, there was so much in that movie. There was the wood chipper scene, which I didn't think was that graphic. It was sort of disturbing, but, I mean, everything that character did was disturbing. Do you guys think, and you can answer this later, do you think the wife survived? Because it's sort of ambiguous, I feel, as to whether she survived or not. And maybe I missed something, or maybe I got an edited version. But I mean, basically, she's lifeless on the floor there, and I can't tell. I mean, there seemed to be emergency vehicles heading towards the place. So yeah, and I also liked that. I don't know, the relationship between Marge and Norm, her husband, and uh, the main protagonist. I loved. That was like the most adorable relationship I've ever seen in a movie. It was like you could tell that they had been together for so long that they were just kind of like they had just hit that plateau, but there was still that warmness underneath. He still woke up at like 4 in the fucking morning to make her eggs, and then she still left some of them there for him to eat, and there was that fun dynamic, and like he did his little drawings and got on the stamp, and she was very supportive, and I don't know, it was just I liked it. It was a very cute relationship, especially hard to do a cute relationship. I feel with like a pregnant cop and some. I mean, none of the characters in this movie are attractive. None of them. There is not a single person in this movie at all who I would say that's an attractive actor. And so, I'm serious. That makes it harder to make a character likable. It can make them more believable. But I think that like, you look at the Ocean 11 films and, like, anything Brad Pitt's ever been in. And, like, those films, because I mean, they just look so good and they're just, like, so badass and they've got that smile and they're doing all the right things and they're saying all the right quips. Whereas in this movie, I mean, anyone who hasn't been to the Midwest Minnesota area doesn't even know that dialect. Like, it's just they've never heard it before. It's like a legend to them. And so to see it in a film and to get to know these characters who are using this dialect, I think is really cool. Anyway, that's all I got. It's a must see. I feel for films, a must see, and I can see really where the Coen brothers have derived a lot of their for like Burn After Reading. I'm gonna have to rewatch Oh Brother Where Art Thou Now, but certainly Burn After Reading and No Country for Old Men derived. I feel some things from this movie, much of the work. And one other thing, Jake, you said that you would love Canada because this movie you thought was beautiful. I gotta admit, there is no difference. There is no difference whatsoever between like the middle chunk of Minnesota driving down, like what would be a long stretch of highway, probably like 35E or like I don't know anything along northern Minnesota looks identical to all of those shots that were in the movie. Like I totally believe that it was in Minnesota, and several of the shots were in Minnesota. I've gone on too far, but I really enjoyed the movie and. I'm exhausted. So, Neil. Yes, Neil. I'll see you tomorrow.